Hello, we are on section 6.2, % markup. Notice there are some textbook practice problems here just to make sure that you leave out the ones that I'm not teaching you in this lesson, so that's just kind of a double check. All right, so we have a couple of review questions, and the first one is about percent of increase. The population of a small town increased from 9,542 to 10,003 in 1 year. What was the percent increase? And so I hope you remember, but on this we start out by subtracting. So 10,003 minus 9,542, and that equals 461. Then we divide by the original amount, and the original is 9,542, right? Because it increased from 9,542 to 10,003 in 1 year. So the original number is the smaller one in this case because it was an increase. So divide by that 9,542. I'm going to fix the 5, and that would be 0.0483. If we round that to the nearest tenth of a percent, and actually I guess we don't even have to round that. Yeah, we would, because we would go to here, right? So to the nearest tenth of a percent would be 4.8%. To the nearest nearest hundredth of a percent, we would be at 4.83%. All right, on the next one, your gross pay is $22.50 each month. If your take-home pay is $1,698.75, what is the percent decrease between gross pay and net pay? So gross pay is the amount of money you make, and net pay is the amount of money your take-home pay, right? So gross pay should always be more than net pay. And we're going to do this the same way that we did for the percent of an increase. We're going to subtract, because we're going to find out how much did your paycheck decrease. That's the sad reality, you guys. It's going to decrease with all the stuff that's withheld. So 551.25 is the difference. And then we divide by that original number. In this case, our original number is the larger one because it decreased to give us our net pay. So we're dividing by $22.50. Or that would be $2,250. And we end up with 0.245. And that happens to be 24.5%. So the decrease was a percentage of 24.5%. So this section is about the percent markup. And we actually don't have to use this complicated formula in this section. We get to go about this in a simpler way. But for you guys, it's kind of like, well, when do I use the formula? So here's when. If the problem has markup words, you know, like it says markup on cost, markup on percent, you're given the markup percent. So if you're finding the markup percent, we don't need this formula. You must find either cost or selling price, right? So if you're looking for the cost or the selling price, you can use the formula, and you have to have your markup percent. On these, we're going to do something quite a lot simpler, right? So the markup formulas are this. The amount of the markup's just the difference between selling price and cost, right? If we subtract the cost from the selling price, that tells us how much the markup was. The percent markup on cost then would be the amount of the markup divided by the cost. And the percent markup on selling price would be the amount of the markup divided by the selling price. Sometimes I use SP, sometimes I use S on selling price. Okay, So on this first one, a clothing retailer paid $24 for a jacket. The retailer later sold the jacket for $42. Find a dollar markup, or dollar amount of markup. So that's going to be 42 minus 24. A simple subtraction, right? That's what we're going to be looking for. My selling price is 42. My cost is 24. The amount of my markup is $18. And then part B says to find the percent markup on cost. So we're going to take the markup amount and divide it by the cost. You can look at it this way, right? 18 divided by 24. And that would be 75%. And this says down at the bottom, round to the nearest tenth of a percent on percent answers for this lesson if needed, right? This one wasn't one that needed rounding, so we're just going to leave it as 75%. So the percent markup on selling price would be the amount of the markup divided by the selling price. We can write that as just a division instead of with a fraction means division, right? The fraction bar means divide, but you can just write it this way if you would like. So when we divide, we get, I actually don't have all that written out. Let's see, 18 divided by 42. So that would be 0.42857, and it doesn't even stop there. If we round that to the nearest tenth of a percent, then it will be 42.9%. All right, next one. Sean McGregor owns a sporting goods store. Sean buys a canoe for $1,800 and sells it for $2,070. Excuse me. Find the dollar amount of markup. So that means I'm going to subtract 1,800 from 2,070. Well, my numbers are just a little wonky. And that gives me $270. The percent markup on cost then would be 270 divided by the cost. So this is my cost, this is my selling price. Divided by the cost would be divided by 1,800, and that happens to be 15%. And then percent markup on selling price would be the amount of our markup divided by the selling price, which was 2,070. That gives me 0.1304, and when I round it, it's 13.0. Remember, we're rounding to the nearest tenth of a percent. The zero is important because it's showing that you did round and it needs to be there. Okay. Jacob builds birdhouses. His markup is 60% on cost. Find what is the dollar amount of markup on a birdhouse that cost him $25. Well, this says that the markup is 60% of the cost, right? So 60% markup on cost. And that means that I'm just going to take $25 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.6 or 0.60. You can put the 0 or not. It's going to give you the same answer. And that's equal to $15. So that's it on part 1. Part 2, what should the selling price be? Well, this is my markup. This is my cost. I add those together, and that equals my selling price of $40. So pretty straightforward problem on that one. Okay, I believe this is the last one for this lesson. So this is a pretty short lesson. We really only do a few things with the percent markup, and hopefully this one will be easier than 6-1. Okay, so this one says a retailer purchased a winter coat for $85, so that's my cost. If the coat is priced at $156, find, I think I should have had a comma right there. So the cost of the coat or the selling price of the code is 156. It says, what is the percent markup on cost? Well, I have to subtract, and that gives me $71. So I take the selling price and subtract the cost. Percent markup on cost would be the amount of the markup divided by the cost, and that would be 83.5%. Remember, you're going to get a decimal and you're going to convert it to the percent. The decimal that you get on that is, here, I'm going to erase that and put it out, 0.835294, and so on, and it continues on. And so to the nearest tenth of a percent, that's 83.5%. And then the percent markup on selling price is 71 divided by 156. And as a decimal, that's 0.455128. Yes. And it continues further than that, to the nearest tenth of a percent. Remember, we moved the decimal 2 places, and then we would round if needed in the tenths place, which is going to be that number. So it's just 0.5%. And okay, that's the end of this lesson.